On a dangerous sea coast, where shipwrecks often occur, there was once a crude little life-saving station. The building was just a hut, and there was only one boat. But the few devoted members kept a constant watch over the sea, and with no thought of themselves, went out day and night, tirelessly searching for the lost. Many lives were saved by this wonderful little station, so that it became famous. Some of those who were saved, and various others in the surrounding area, wanted to become associated with the station and give of their time and money and effort for the support of its work. New boats were bought and new crews trained, and the little life-saving station grew. Some of the members of the life-saving station were unhappy that the building was so crude and poorly equipped. They felt that a more comfortable place should be provided as the first refuge of those saved. So they replaced the emergency cots with beds and put better furniture in the enlarged building. Now, the station became a popular gathering place for its members, and they decorated it beautifully and furnished it exquisitely because they used it as sort of a club. Fewer members were now interested in going to sea on life-saving missions, so they hired lifeboat crews to do this work. The life-saving motive still prevailed in this club's decoration, and there was a liturgical lifeboat in the room where club initiations were held. About this time, a large ship was wrecked off the coast, and the hired crews brought in boatloads of cold, wet and half-drowned people. They were dirty and sick, and some of them had black skin and some had yellow. The beautiful new club was in chaos. So the property committee immediately had a shower house built outside the club where victims of shipwrecks could be cleaned up before coming inside. At the next meeting, there was a split in the club membership. Most of the members wanted to stop the club's life-saving activities as being unpleasant and a hindrance to the normal social life of the club. Some members insisted upon life-saving as their primary purpose and pointed out that they were still called a life-saving station. But they were finally voted down and told that if they wanted to save the lives of all the various kinds of people who were shipwrecked in those waters, they could begin their own life-saving station down the coast. And they did. As the years went by, the new station experienced the same changes that had occurred in the old. It evolved into a club, and yet another life-saving station was founded. History continued to repeat itself, and if you visit that seacoast today, you will find a number of exclusive clubs along the coast. Shipwrecks are frequent in those waters, but most of the people drown. Losing our way, forgetting, or changing our priorities, it can be such a subtle thing, but one that can lead us right off track if we are not careful. The Israelites of Jeremiah's time discovered this. They had the living waters, but they turned away from it and dug wells of their own making. The church, down through the ages, has discovered this to its cost. And when you read a statement like this, an archbishop in Russia told a local news agency in late March, everything the president does is right. Speaking as a monarchist, I would personally place a crown upon Putin's head if God granted the opportunity. Hearing that, you do have to wonder where that particular church is heading right now. suspect we all struggle with the problem of looking for an easier way out at some time or other. I know I do. Right now, with all that is going on in our world, there are times when I just want to block my ears to it all and pretend it's not happening. There is no doubt that being present to and holding the pain of others and loving our neighbours as ourselves is just never an easy thing to do. Of course, there always are those times when we really do need to give ourselves a break. And those are the times we do need a supportive community around us. The challenge, though, is to make sure we do not lose our way entirely, but rather learn ways of coping with the distress and uncertainty. Michael Marsh suggests this is what faith is in fact all about. He wrote, "I used to think faith meant living with absolutes and certainty, having no doubts or questions. But is that more fear and fundamentalism rather than faithfulness? Let's not forget that Abraham set out not knowing where he was going. His life and journey were as open-ended as are ours. Maybe faith then is the willingness to show up and live with uncertainty in an ever-changing world, to live with that discomfort. And what if faith isn't about having or even needing to have the answers, but about asking better questions, deeper questions that help us discover meaning and live more wholeheartedly? So what is God asking of us at this moment? Well, as always, to follow in Jesus' footsteps and seek to do what he would do. To stop counting the costs, the benefits and the rewards of our actions and live from a sense of abundance and blessing to reach out to others. And know that we always have a God who we can turn to. Jesus had the gift of humility. And as a gifted leader, he was interested in cultivating humility among his followers. Now, humility is something that is often misunderstood, and it was not really considered a virtue in Jesus' time. The kind of humility that Jesus is talking about here was well described by a former Archbishop of Canterbury, William Temple. He said, "Humility does not mean thinking less of yourself than of other people, nor does it mean having a low opinion of your own gifts. It means freedom from thinking about yourself at all." We live in a world that has many honour lists, where positions of importance can be sought and cherished, where the temptation to popularity has much scope. For instance, I still have to get my head around what influencers actually do and how they create such a following. Maybe, I think sometimes I'm just getting too old for all of this. But all of this at times can seem so far from what Jesus taught and demonstrated. Today's readings really challenge us to look beyond ourselves and to be open to the holiness of others. From Hebrews, let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. They challenge us to see God in all things and all things in God. They remind us that at God's table, every place is the same. There is always enough to go around. There is room for everyone. Gracious God, you are always more ready to hear us than we are to pray, and you give us more than we either desire or deserve. May we remember that all our gifts, abilities and life come from you, and grant that we may use them to your glory and the benefit of others. Amen.